The ongoing migrant tragedy in the Mediterranean prompted a state of emergency declaration Wednesday. The rescues of more than 400 people in the last 2 days because of the stepped-up patrols has overwhelmed the island of Sicily. The governor declared a state of emergency to deal with a large number of migrants it now has to deal with. Meanwhile, all of the coffins for the 359 victims of the massacre off the island of Lampedusa have been moved to Sicily. The Prime Minister of Italy promised to give them a state funeral, but so far there's no word on when, and now even if it will happen. Students from the campuses of 17 New York City universities recently combined forces to combat human trafficking in a campaign called Price of Life. Our two guests both participated. Ashley Witherspoon is a senior at City College, and Reverend Raleigh Sadler is a pastor of the Gallery Church here in Manhattan. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, this tragedy certainly highlights something that has been a story for the decades, even the centuries, of people using very dangerous means to get away from war, poverty, disease, any number of things from their country. What were you hoping to accomplish with this? What did you hope to bring attention to?
Well, I definitely wanted to bring attention to basically what human trafficking is. Like, I personally didn't know a lot about it. I watched Taken, I watched Lifetime movies, but I wanted people to really know that it's happening here. It's not just a third world issue, it's happening at home.
So what brought it home for you? What made you get involved?
Well, actually, I'm part of InterVarsity on my campus, and we have something called One Cry, and that's when we first really heard, about it. And what really brought it home was hearing about little kids who were being sold off by their own families, and the fact that there are brothels and other things within a 3-mile radius from pretty much wherever you can stand in the city. So,
Reverend Sadler, certainly part of this tragedy is the fact that the trafficking of human misery is a business.
Absolutely.
And what is that in the factor in terms of dealing with this, in terms of stopping it, in at least the dangerous ways that people have chosen to migrate to other countries?
Well, anytime you have vulnerable populations, there will be people who try to exploit them. So with that said, human trafficking happens when there's exploitation of vulnerability for commercial gain. And so how do we stop something like that there is such a demand for? And the answer is we partner in ending the demand. What we buy creates a demand. So if we continue to buy clothing, food, coffee, chocolate that has slavery in its supply chains, then we're driving the demand for modern day slavery.
Well, let's take the example of the boat tragedy, Eritrea and Somalia. There is nothing in those countries that anybody in the West wants. So how would that work in this example?
Because almost everything that we consume on a daily basis touches people who are living in developing nations. Just look at your cell phone. There are components in your cell phone that were mined at the hands of forced labor.
And you're talking about coltan, which is at the heart of
Absolutely.
the Democratic Republic of Congo battle there.
And, the fish we eat. A lot of the fish that is served on our table comes from Southeast Asia. And in a lot of those cases, there again, you have forced labor.
Ashley, you are a millennial, as I've been told, so there is a different sort of mindset among the millennials about what things that they deserve and what kind of things go on in the world, sort of kind of their closed, blinded lifestyle. They spend a lot of it, doing video games or listening to music. Just what has been the reaction of your peers about your involvement in this particular movement?
surprisingly, they were the same as me. Even talking to people at church as well, like they thought that it just happened like, oh, I thought it only happened over there. This is America. Like, we're privileged, nothing happens over here. And the fact that you can actually go online and find out which places have been shut down, within your neighborhood. A lot of people were kind of taken aback by that. And when we did the Price of Life campaign on our campus, a lot of people were surprised. And it made it even more worthwhile to actually be able to educate people and to let them know this is happening at home. It's not just far away thing. Charity starts at home, and we have to, kind of battle this here before we can go anywhere else and say that we're saving the world and we can't save our own home.
The Reverend mentioned particularly getting involved in terms of finding out what the food chain is of the economy, of the money that you spend that targets industries that use slave labor. What is there a list that you have for young people, things that they can do or stop doing to have an impact on this?
Definitely. Well, one, we have a campaign called Log Off. It's Live Organic, Green, Free, and Fair. And it's basically, there's actually a list of websites and things you can buy, from anything from jewelry to food. And I know that it costs a lot of money, and now that we're in college, like, we're just looking at, you have to pay for this and that, and now we have to pay for organic food. It costs so much, but in a sense, like, you're actually kind of paying, for someone to be free. Yeah. And you're investing in their freedom instead of investing in their slavery. So that extra $2 or $3 for that salad, it may hurt at a time, but it's going to help that person be able to live comfortably at home.
You're paying the cost so they don't have to.
Are there any particular corporations or companies, either domestically or internationally, that are worse than others?
Absolutely. There's an app where it's called free2work.org, and it gives you the opportunity to take pictures of barcodes, and it will rate how that company is in their supply chains, how healthy of a company that is.
In terms of their participation
Absolutely.
in human suffering?
Yeah.
Wow. And give me the name of that app again?
Free2work.org.
Free, the number 2 work?
And another thing I would challenge people to do is take a survey on slaveryfootprint.org, and that shows you what your slavery footprint is. Their tagline is, how many slaves are working for you currently? And just based on your lifestyle, it will show how much of a demand you're creating.
Now, part of this, the other side of this, is the economy of the countries that these people are desperately trying to leave. It's not always war. On our own borders, we have migrants who risk crushing temperatures and drowning and suffocation to get into the United States because the economy is not as good in Mexico, or at least it hasn't been more recently. What kind of a push does a grassroots effort like that, how can that grow to a spot where it could actually influence the economy of a foreign country, or is that too much to ask?
No, it's not too much at all. Like I said, charity starts at home. My grandfather told my dad that. My dad always tells me that. And we can't really do anything until we make a stamp here. And once our stamp is big enough, once we stop investing in companies that are, actively keeping people under, working conditions that aren't really great, or they're dying, or they're not paying them, livable wages. Once they stop getting money from here, America has a huge hold on a lot of the things that are imported here. And if we cut that off, eventually they're going to see they're not playing games, that they're actually, serious about this. And once we start to take a stand as a whole, as a country, even state by state, and that's what the Price of Life wants to do, is that just go from state to state. And actually, New York City was the hugest that they've done so far, with more universities at one time. Usually they do it on one campus in one city, but something doing it here, it makes a huge difference. So now when people go home, if they're international students, they could say, hey, is there anything like this going on at home? And once it starts to grow, then it can cross borders and cross, the waters.
One wonderful thing about the Price of Life is we partnered with 3 organizations and raised money for each organization. And one of those organizations is the NOMI Network. And what they do is they partner with victims and survivors of human trafficking in Cambodia and India, and they give them a trade, and they help reintegrate them in society so that they don't have to return back to that life, and that they can make a product that can be sold to boost the economy even. Okay. So we want this to be holistically good for everyone that's involved, for the buyer and the person who's creating the product.
Yep. Can you give us those websites and that app title one more time?
Absolutely. It's the nominetwork.org, and to buy their products, it's www.buyherbagnotherbody.com.
Okay. And the slavery tracking information?
Slaveryfootprint.org.
Slaveryfootprint.org.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sadler and Ms. Witherspoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Arise Today to talk about the subject.
Thank you.
Okay.